Dude, let's talk about Africa. Have you ever had a moment where you thought you knew everything about success, happiness, and even safety, and then it just flips upside down?
Man, I just had that moment. One week I was standing in the luxury of LA, and the next I'm standing in Nairobi, Kenya, where people have to fight every day just to make it through. To be totally honest, man, it shook me to see how happy these people were, even though they had nothing.
Yeah, it's crazy because I know here on our podcast, we talk a lot about financial freedom, designing a life that you want, but when you see people living with so little and somehow finding the joy in life, it forces you to change your perspective and really rethink everything.
You're exactly right, Dom. From extreme struggles to seeing what wealth really means in different cultures. This trip gave me a perspective shift that, to be totally honest, I don't think I was totally ready for, but I'm so glad that I had. And to be totally honest, some of it was really hard to process. So hopefully we can do that today on the podcast.
Well, let's get into it and change how we all think about life.
This is the Fi Guys. Let's get started.
Alrighty, Chris, I'm just curious, on your trip to Africa, did you ever play the song Africa by Toto? Was that like the theme song of the trip? Was there a theme song of the trip? I gotta know. It's been kind of burning in my head a little bit.
You know, that song, Africa by Toto, that's actually mine and my wife's song, but it's not by Toto. It's the one by Weezer. So it was at first a joke that we should make our song Africa. And then it became our song. We actually sang or danced to it at my wedding and everything. So yes, the Africa by Weezer did play quite a few times when we were in Africa.
That's so funny. There's this, I love that. I gotta check out the Weezer version. I don't think I've heard the Weezer version in so long. But I will say there's kind of a song that replays on my live stream when I go live over on my channel. And everybody in the chat loves it because it's the same theme of the song, but the song is called Africa, but not by Toto. And it's kind of like a running joke. It's like, it's a great song. It sounds just like it. Same like harmonies and everything, but it's like a different song, but it's Africa, but not by Toto. But that's awesome. That's freaking awesome. I mean, if you're going to Africa, you got to play the song Africa. I mean, that's the trip didn't happen if you didn't play that song, Weezer or not Weezer version. But that's awesome. That's so cool. So you just got back from Africa. You got a whole bunch of knowledge you're trying to drop on us. I'm curious to see. I know we talked very briefly. We didn't want to spoil too much, save it for the pod. But where do we want to start on the things that you learned from your experiences in Africa?
Yeah. The biggest thing this year, one of my goals has been to figure out what is enough. And then also to get a wider perspective on the world, to realize how we are all kind of interconnected and what it is that we actually need and what we don't need. And so often here in life, I forget how much I have and how much I take for granted. It's not till you go to a place that legitimately is a third world country, and third world is often defined by the non-access to running water, that you realize that the things that you take for granted, the ability to flush your toilets, the ability to turn on a light and have water come on, that there's nothing that says that has to be true. Until you actually see it in real life, you see people who are going through that, who are still some of the happiest people I have ever met, the most giving people I have ever met, that you realize how much of a piece of shit you are for not realizing how much you have.
100%, 100%. It seems like a lot of those third world countries, while they don't have a lot of material possessions, they hold a lot of happiness in them still, because maybe they're not just chasing the next dollar, the next dime, the next iPhone. But I'm kind of curious, what's something that you experienced that really totally surprised you?
So let me just tell you a little about the trip first off and how we went around places. So first we flew out of LAX and we went to Dubai. We went to Dubai because we knew we were going to go to the other side of the world. It's about 11-hour difference. And my wife and I wanted to have some time where we could adjust to the time zone before we ended up in Africa on safari, because we didn't want to be asleep in the truck. If you're going to spend all that money, you want to make sure that you're awake doing it. So we went to Dubai for a few days. We got to immerse ourselves inside that culture, go around. We were there for 3 nights, 2 days, and we tried our best to stay up as long as we could to just go around and see all of Dubai. It is a wonderful place. To any of our audience members, if you have a chance to go to Dubai, I would certainly recommend it in terms of language, which is normally one of the biggest barriers I find. Everyone speaks English there. It's Arabic and English are the two main ones.
Big ones. Yeah.
Obviously, I don't know Arabic, but I do know English pretty well. So everyone understands that. The prices are pretty good, and it is beyond safe. so much safer than it is in America. They very much have adopted the cameras everywhere watching everybody, which here in America probably wouldn't work very well because we're too much of like a freedom land. Like that's what the country was founded on. But when you go to a new land, to a new place that you've never been to, sometimes it feels safe to know that somebody is watching over. So we did a few days there. You have any questions on Dubai?
No, I was just gonna say, like, it's kind of interesting. I think you did it right. I think you did it right. Especially with like, if you're going into it, like obviously you're going into to have fun, make memories, all that fun stuff. But I know you, knowing you, you know, you're like the learner. You're like king learner, right? So I feel like subconsciously or not, I think it's so interesting that you go to a place where there's more wealth than anywhere. Like it's like one of the richest places, like Bugattis everywhere, Ferraris everywhere. Like it's just money, 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 right? And then you go to a third world country, so it's like you're shifting your perspective. Like you're getting a lot of like greed, capitalism, all this stuff in, like first world, like peak first world, and then you go down the rung to third world, right? And I think it's the switch is so rich to see, and like the differences and everything. And I'm hoping that we can like continue to get into that and learn, like see what you kind of learned from that. Dubai seems very interesting. Dubai seems very interesting. Their tax laws seem very interesting to me as well. I know that's the greedy part of me. That being said, it would be kind of difficult to record the podcast if I was 11 hours behind or ahead. But maybe we'll figure it out. But yeah, Dubai, definitely a pretty cool city, pretty inventive, pretty. What else? Any final? Yeah.
Extremely inventive. Everyone there was extremely kind as well. Everyone was very, very nice. They say hi to you. And they were open to talk about their culture. You know, normally when I meet people, I love going 10 levels deep with conversation, like not just asking like, how is the weather, stuff like that, but like asking about, tell me about your childhood, tell me about your religion, tell me about things that most people probably are afraid to ask. And everyone was so open to those types of conversations. You know, I met some people from, everyone in Dubai is a transplant. You know, like there are Arabic people that were there before, but most people are people that have moved from other locations to find a better life. So I met people from Tibet, people from China, people from India, all over the place. I met people there and I got to talk to them about the way that they lived. And it was pretty cool to learn. There were some Buddhists that I met as well. So I got to sit there and talk to them about their time at the ashrams and what they learned. So everything was just wonderful. And then we get onto our plane, you know, we have a 5-hour flight and then we land in a completely different location, right? Where you're going from the peak of wealth. Like in Dubai, I felt like the poorest person. So I'm like, no one's going to rob me. I'm fine. Like, why would they steal me when there's like all these other people you can rob?
Yeah.
But then we go into Kenya and you land there and you're in a very, very different situation. You know, to the point that I've traveled a lot in my life and only in certain parts of Mexico have I felt unsafe. The entire time that I was in Nairobi, Kenya, the major city, I felt pretty unsafe. And the reason for that isn't because of the people, or I guess it is because of the people, but isn't because of, it's not their fault. A lot has to do with their government. Unfortunately, in the city of Nairobi, the unemployment rate is 76%. 76% of the people there are unemployed. And they are desperate to try to do anything they can. I mean, right now in America, we're struggling with unemployment rates in the single digits. Could you imagine what it would be like when less than a quarter of your population has a job? And those that do have a job are taxed at 46% in order for the government to be able to steal money from the population.
Yeah. That is
like, it is the true definition of tyranny.
Yeah, I didn't expect that. I mean, what else that kind of happened there that you were caught off guard by?
So when we booked our hotel, we also booked a private driver. Typically when we're going to new locations, my wife and I will always book a private driver because we don't, you know, sometimes Uber doesn't work. Sometimes Lyft doesn't work. If we're going to a different country, like we're going to book everything in advance. That's the way my wife has always planned it. So our driver's name was Sam, and he was the kindest man that we ever met. You know, we got to meet him. He took our bags. He drove us around. And Sam actually grew up in one of the largest slums in Nairobi. This slum is the largest slum in Africa. no running water, no nothing. Over 1 million people live in this area, which is kind of down in the ravine in Nairobi, Kenya. So if you ever go there, what you'll see is there's a lot of people who just kind of walk around all day, kind of aimlessly, like there's nothing to do. And what Sam explained to me is those people are from the slum. And what they do is they leave the slum every day because there's no work there. And they just walk around trying to find work, hoping to find some sort of an opportunity to make some money to care for themselves and their family, which, when you really think about it, is the most devastating thing in the world. Like, there's no safety net. There is nothing. There's people who are just walking around hoping that something happens, that somebody will give them work, that maybe that something happens. I don't even know what they're hoping for, but that's how desperate these people are.
That does change your perspective quite a lot. How do they view, I mean, I don't know how deep you got in a conversation. I know you're a 10 levels deep guy, but like, how do they view money, like work, like success? I mean, obviously work is scarce, right? There's not a lot of work to be done. There's not a lot of employers to employ people. But did you have any conversations about like money or success, or like how they view all of that? Because I know here in America, right, it's like you have to be successful if you want to be loved by your parents or loved by yourself, right? And to a degree, that's accurate. To a degree, that's totally wrong. And that's definitely a horrible way to ever think about anything. But success plays a huge part in American culture, especially if you're looking for the American dream. What is there a Kenyan dream? Like, is there an African dream? Like, how do they view that?
I think it's going to depend on what part of Africa you're in, right? So
Yeah.
in Nairobi, that's the major city. And I think a lot of it has to do with when you start to put too many people together, people start to compete for resources that are scarce. And that's when that I need more, I need more, I need more kind of comes in. You're kind of forgetting the reason that you need more. You're just trying to acquire more to just feel better. But when you're in a place that there is no ability to get ahead, you're really stuck between a rock and a hard place. So yes, everyone that we met, obviously they want more. I never talked with anybody with like, what does money mean to you or anything like that while I was there. But I will say that that they want more for themselves, but they don't know how to do it. To be honest, if I was there, I wouldn't know how to do it. I think it's almost an impossibility. So for example, our driver, Sam, he grew up in the slum of Nairobi. He made it out. He's now a driver for Marriott, and that's doing well. Like, that's doing well, is that he actually has a job. So he's doing well. Mm-hmm. He has 2 kids, a wife. He has to live out in the countryside. He has to commute in for a full 2 hours just to be able to get to work.
Really?
The road system there is completely different than ours. There are no lights. There are really no systems. You can drive. It's the scariest thing in the world to if you were driving, you probably wouldn't even pull out the parking lot. It's that chaotic.
No,
so he goes
no freeways, no nothing like that, or
there are freeways, but there are people on the freeways who are trying to sell stuff. It is.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of things happening. The Chinese did come in there and they created a express system where you have to pay to go on there, but most people don't use it because no one has the money to be able to pay to go on there. So we were able to go on there because obviously we paid for it. But if you're a person from Nairobi, you don't have the money to pay to take that service. So you're having to go on the side roads, and on the side roads, there's people walking, there's all this stuff happening, and it's slow. The roads are often potholed or even dirt. Not dirt, I would say, gravelly.
Clay. Gravelly.
Yeah, a gravelly clay. So there are some spots that are a little trepidatious, which you have to drive through there. One thing that I did want to kind of talk about is our driver, Sam, his dream, when you're kind of asking, what's the dream? What would you say, if you had to think, and I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but if someone was to say, what's kind of the lowest job here in America?
Probably a fry cook at McDonald's. Maybe.
How would you feel about someone saying oh, I'm a truck driver?
I don't know. I feel like truck drivers they live kind of a cool life. I'm gonna be honest. They live kind of a cool life, right? If you didn't have a family or a girlfriend or anything, I think it's kind of a cool life if you like driving. Me personally, I'd get a little bit stressed out trying to back up an 18-wheeler. That's just me, or trying to maneuver through the city. I'd be hitting all the bumps and curbs. But I wouldn't say it's a bad job. I think it's a very necessary job. The fry cook at McDonald's, I don't know if it's very necessary. I think probably do without that for right now. But where are you going with this one?
So the reason I ask is I want to kind of get your assessment on like being a truck driver in America. Do you think it's like an aspiration? Is anyone like, oh man, when I grew up, I hope to be a truck driver?
Probably not that many people. Probably
Yeah.
not that many people.
So Sam, his goal in life is to come to America to be a truck driver. That is his goal. Like that is his aspiration. And that just kind of shows you like how how these different perspectives of here in America. You're born in America. You know, ask a kid when they're first grade, what do you want to be when you grow up? And someone says like a truck driver. And then you know what's that teacher going to do? They're going to poop all over that dream and make the kid feel really small. But in different parts of the world, being a truck driver in America is the pinnacle of what success means. So I want our audience members to remember, like, to get that perspective, to realize like how blessed you are to even have the opportunity to work as a fry cook at McDonald's, to work as this, to work as whatever you think is too low for you. There's somebody else out there who would kill for that job, who would kill for the opportunity that you take for granted or you think is below you.
So it sounds like there's going to be a lot of paradigm shifts after your return in regards to wealth from this trip. I mean, were you expecting that? I mean, obviously, like, you know, Kenya, it's like when you think of Kenya, you don't think of, you know, Saudi Arabian oil money, right? You don't think of, you know, 100-foot or 100-story skyscrapers or anything like that. You kind of already like know what you're getting into a little bit, but was there anything that really surprised you about your trip in Kenya?
The biggest thing was the unemployment. Like that was just insane to see so many people just walking around with nothing to do and just the hope of trying to make something. You know, another thing I thought was kind of cool is they have these big birds. They're called Malibu storks. They're about 4 to 5 feet tall, and they hang out in the city. So when we were driving on the freeway, on the lamppost, there were these giant birds, and I was like, "That's not real." And then they take off, and there's these giant, like pterodactyl looking things flying through the cities. You know, it was
That's
pretty cool to land
awesome.
there. You know,
Were they delivering babies, or like what's the deal there?
Maybe.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, they're carrying some stuff, but also next to the freeways, they have one of the largest reserves. So from the freeways, you can sometimes see giraffes walking by, elephants walking by, water buffalo. So that was pretty cool to be able to see that like from a freeway. You can just like look over and be like, oh, hey, like we're in Africa. Like we made it. I know we made it because there's the animals.
Yeah. That's so interesting. Okay, so you made it to Africa. You made it to Kenya. You have a wonderful driver, Sam. What did you guys do? What else did you guys do when you got there? I mean, I assume you weren't just like chatting it up with Sam, driving around town all, you know, for 2 weeks.
No. So we got there, and my wife really wanted to go shopping.
Love that.
You know, obviously, when you go there, we have to always go shopping. Once we started driving around the city, as we drove to our hotel, we kind of realized like, oh, this is not the kind of place that you want to walk around the city to go and try to find a place to shop at. So we told our driver that we wanted to go shopping, and our driver was kind enough to say, hey, I have the rest of the afternoon off. I would love to be your guys' driver and take you around to different places that are safe. So he took us first to a place called Kobe Tough. And just to give you guys more of a perspective as to the kind of level of suffering that there is in the world and the level of abundance that we have here. Back in 2019 in Kenya, there was a severe drought. And there's a bunch of different peoples, but one of the places that we went to is called Maasai Mara. Maasai is the location. Mara means spot. So it is the bush for people that are like from South Africa. You're out in nature. And the Maasai people, the way that they make money, because they're an agricultural society. So a lot of them, they're grazing cattle and selling crops. Now, back in 2019, they had a severe drought. And unfortunately, most of their cattle died off. So in the Maasai culture, the way that when they get married, the way that their marriage works is they work on a dowry system. And typically in European dowry systems, the female pays, but in the Maasai culture, the male pays the dowry. So what ended up happening is these families became so desperate because their cattle died off, their livestock was dead, and they couldn't make money, that they had to begin to sell off their daughters in order to support themselves and the rest of the family. And I want you to think about how impossible of a choice that is. To have to look at your child and say, I have to sell you off in order to be able to keep myself and the other kids alive.
That's Brutal. That's so brutal. Hmm.
And
Yeah,
this
I
is the
can't even
kind of
imagine thinking
level
something like that. Yeah.
and this is the kind of level of things that you're dealing with, like on a daily basis of life and death, and it's so abundantly clear as to what's going on everywhere. So we went to this place called Kobe Tough, and what it is obviously this happened. There's a lot of people who are out in the bush who have great skills. They're great at beating. They're great at doing things, but they don't have the ability to sell to market. Like they don't have internet. They don't have those things to be able to do things. So what Kobe Tough does is they actually help and employ women in the city and women in the Maasai in order to create necklaces, beads, work with from clay. So what they do is they collect dirt, they put water in that dirt, they stir it around for a few days, and basically they have this 5-week process from taking the dirt from the ground, putting it inside of a tub, to making beautiful jewelry, sculptures, belts, and all these different types of things. So they took us through, they showed us the tour, they showed us exactly what they do. We got to meet some of the women that are there, escaping some of the terrible lives that they were unfortunately dealt due to the way the culture is, and just trying to make some money to support themselves and support their children. Because most of these women that were there don't have a person to support them. So they need to try to figure that out for themselves. And in a culture like that, it's not like how it is here in America where anyone can just walk into a place and get a job. Even in America, it's not like that. But imagine it was 10,000 times harder.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So, wow. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, like a lot of the stuff that we talk about on the podcast, in regards to Ali, I mean, investing, doing this, side hustles, and like all these different things, and they're not there over there. It doesn't.
It doesn't exist. Doesn't exist at all.
Wow.
So after we got to go there, we went to another place to go shopping. My wife they went to a kind of a thrift shop place, and we did it the African way, where it's a full on negotiation system. There is no prices. There's no nothing. You're just in there. And I realized how terrible my wife is at negotiating.
Yeah.
So we definitely got took.
Yep.
For the things that we bought, but it's okay. We got to help some people out.
Does it help or hurt that your wife is about as white as snow? She's fair complexion like me. So whenever I go out of country and someone's selling to me, the price goes up like 4 or 5x. I'm like, dude, it's a deceiver. It's not actual. I'm not rich. It's white. But did you have a similar experience like that,
Yeah,
or prices went
1,000%.
skyrocketed?
One
Gotcha.
thousand. When I was talking to the guy about it, he was like, "Oh, it costs like this much." And then when my wife talked to him, it was like 10 times as much as it was for me. And I have a funny story about that actually. One
Okay.
time in Hawaii, my wife and I we went to the swap meet
Yeah.
over at the stadium on Oahu. We were walking around, and my wife sees something that she really wants. And she's like, Chris, I really want this. Can we get this? And I was like, well, ask how much it is. So she asked the local boy, like, how much does it cost? And he was like, $100. My wife's like, oh, that's really expensive. Like, I don't think I can afford it. My husband's not going to let me get it. So she puts it down. Not 3 seconds later, she comes to tell me it's $100. I walk into the same place, tatted up. I look like how I look.
Yeah.
And I ask him, like, hey, bro, how much this costs? And he's like, oh, $15. So it does help a lot to look the part sometimes.
Nice. It definitely helps to look the part. Yeah. As soon as you're, oh wow, that's funny. That's bad though. That's so bad. 15 from 100. Oh my goodness. And he's still making money on the 15. So question is, were you ever scammed in Africa?
No, but it is a very well. Yes, we were scammed while shopping for sure,
Yeah.
but we weren't scammed any other places. After that, like our goal was just to get back to the hotel and not leave the hotel. The hotel
Fair.
was beautiful, but I want you to kind of think about this. Kenya borders Somalia. Somalia was first controlled by Somali pirates. Now it's controlled by ISIS. So every single hotel, whenever you drive into the hotel, there are dogs that they open up all 4 doors. The dogs will smell all 4 doors, including the trunk. And then in order to enter any hotel, you have to also go get your bags checked and go through a scanner to make sure you're not having any bombs. Like this is the kind of culture that they live in that like not only are you 76% unemployment, not only is you're getting taxed at 46%, not only do you have the largest slum in all of Africa, in addition to that, you also border a terrorist country that is constantly trying to blow up parts of your area in order to hurt Americans, hurt the world, hurt whoever. So that's the kind of culture that you're in. So I can't even begin to like assume the level of fear or how close death is to these people at all times, or like how just abundantly clear it is as to what is important and not.
That's terrible. That's really terrible. Like when you're like, when this was kind of going through my mind when you're talking about that. You know, it's like they used to be controlled by Somali pirates. I'm like, oh, that's really bad. I remember watching like Captain Phillips. Like I have a very minute knowledge base of that. And then you're like, but now they're controlled. I'm like, oh, well, I mean, they can't be worse than pirates. Modern day pirates. It can't be any worse than pirates. It's like, and now it's controlled by ISIS. It's like, much worse. Much worse. That is much worse. What a state of terror. Like, we have the cartels here, but I mean, not like bomb level cartels. That's horrible. That's genuinely terrible. That's terrible. That's terrible. So once, you know, you did your excursion, you know, you explored a little bit, then you went to the hotel, or I'm sorry, the resort. It was a resort.
It was a hotel. This was
a hotel. Okay. And was it the kind of hotel where it's like they have everything we need, so there's no need to leave type thing, or was it like okay?
It was that kind of hotel, and we weren't going to leave again after we got back. We were like, we're kind of done. The zoning was kind of crazy, and from our hotel, you could like it's middle of the city, beautiful hotel, biggest hotel, like tallest hotel that we stayed in. Was the one that we stayed in. Right next to it, there's like an abandoned lot. Right next to that, there's like a destroyed, like dilapidated house. Like there's no zoning laws. Like it's all just kind of whatever. Around our hotel, there was both barbed wire and an electric fence. Like it's God. You get a lot of like, probably shouldn't go outside and walk around the neighborhood. And you're also told by the staff not to go outside and walk around the neighborhood. So it's made abundantly clear to you how to stay safe and not stay safe. And even with all of the suffering, all the things, all of this, everyone we met who was an employee or something was so kind, so giving, and wanted to just be there of service. Even though they had nothing, they wanted to be there to help you, which obviously is their job. But I've been to many places, many hotels, many things like that, and you still don't get that level of service, even if people are getting paid, unless they want to be there, unless they realize like how grateful they are to be able to have that opportunity to serve you.
You think there's quite a few pages we can take from their book on humility, and I don't want to say I'm just going to say minimalism as well, and not be so consumer, like not have such a consumerist mindset. I'm curious, what was the pace like there? As someone like, have you been to New York City? You've been to New York City a few times, right? Right. So you understand like really fast pace, right? You used to live in SoCal, California, right? Pace is probably a lot different there. You've had a good range of different paces, different frequencies. What was the pace like in Africa?
The feeling you get is desperation. Like you don't even get a feeling of like pace, because the people that are walking around, like, yeah, they're walking around, but there's a lot of people just like kind of laying around on the streets. Like it's so different. Like there's not even a pacing of like, let's try to hustle and get these things done, because there's nothing to do. It's very, very different. We did meet a guy named Drew who decided, he was also a white guy, that he wanted to go while he was in Kenya and get his hair cut. And he said that he has also traveled around the world. And he said that he has never felt unsafe until he walked through the market in Kenya. He said there were people tracking him. He said that people would like constantly try to talk to him. Our driver Sam said that people even hold chloroform and try to shake your hand so that you'll kind of pass out, and then they'll pretend that they're your caretaker as they rob you. Drew, the guy who I'm talking about, also said that as he was walking, there was people that would like dip out, and then they would like go through some alleyway or whatever, and then like pop up like a block later to wait for him. So people were like waiting on him to try to rob him or do whatever it is that they were trying to do. So not to say that any of these people are bad, but just you have to be able to understand the context of the level of desperation that it takes to have so many people looking for anything, and not for themselves, but in order to supply their family, supply their kids with food. What would you be willing to do to put food in your kid's mouth? And then that's the kind of things you can begin to understand what it's like for these people. So for me, it was a huge perspective shift to be able to see all the things we take for granted. And we're not even we're in, at this point, Dominic, as I'm talking about all of this, you are in a modern city that has some roads, that has, for the most part, running water and electricity. Outside of the slum, it looks like parts of Mexico.
So you're in the best place in Kenya. I assume Nairobi is the best place in Kenya.
It's the capital. It's the biggest city in Kenya.
It's
I'm
the
not going to
biggest
say it's
city.
the best.
Yeah,
But it's the most modern city.
So you're at the hotel. Did you go on any safaris? How did that all go?
So we got to Nairobi. The next day, we woke up and then we actually went to another airport, and then we flew another hour to go out into the bush. So we flew into the Maasai Mara, landed on a dirt airstrip on a tiny little plane, which is as sketchy as it sounds. And the moment you get off there, you're met by your driver, and your driver has food and everything like that. And they basically take you on a dirt road and you drive to the hotel. This hotel was very different than the other hotel. This was actually a resort type hotel where you're actually in the safari, like you're in the Maasai Mara, you're in the bush. Every single day you got to go out on safari, get to hop inside the back of a truck. You were supplied with a nice camera with a telescopic lens to take photos. Every day, my wife and I, we had a great driver named Paul, and our friend Drew, who we met on the trip. So every day we were going out, leaving basically at 6 or 6:30 a.m. We would stay out till about noon, come back for 3 or 4 hours to chill and relax during the heat of the day when all the animals would go away. And then from there, we would go back out for another evening session where we're going out there trying to find as many animals as we possibly can, get photos, and just see nature. And you were talking about, like, what song did you hear playing in your head? And the song I kept on hearing over and over and over again was The Circle of Life. Over and over and over again in my head.
I can see that. That makes sense. No, that makes completely sense. I love that. That's a good song. That's a perfect song for that. That's awesome. I know it was a long flight over there initially. Did you? I mean, it was like 5. How long was the flight to Dubai?
16 hours and an additional 5 hours. So we were basically, it was a day of travel.
A day. Was Lion King on the list? Did you watch any Lion King or anything like that? The new Lion King?
I actually watched all the Matrix movies.
Nice. Those are good. Big shout out to Keanu Reeves. We love. Well, hold on now. Did you watch the newest one too?
I didn't watch it on the airplane because I'd never seen it before. I watched it when I got back home, and I was very disappointed.
It sucks. 3 movies is perfect. Happening. 4 there was no need. It just wasn't a good movie. Anyway, so you're on safari. You're looking for animals. You're having a great time. What else happened? What moment that did you? I don't even know. Did you captured a lot of photos? Did you get a lot of great photos?
Yes, we got some great photos. You got to see really the circle of life. You got to see life and death every single day. We went out on different safaris. We found lions, jaguars, rhino, hippos, pretty much every animal that you can think of. We found it. We have photos of every single one of them, including the blackhorn rhino, which is one of the most difficult to find because they're nearly extinct. So we had to find them, find jaguars, cheetahs, everything. And that's certainly the reason that people go to Africa, is for those safaris, to see those animals in their natural habitat. It's something that you can't see at a zoo, because you're never going to see at a zoo a cheetah chase down a gazelle and maul it right in front of you. They're not going to let the kids watch that. But in Africa, that's something that you see, if you're lucky, relatively often. So just imagine being in that culture where you grow up in these areas and you get to see that every single day. That really puts into perspective in these people what really matters.
Yeah.
The amount of people that I talk to who are just happy to have breath in their lungs, just to be able to be breathing, really put in perspective to me how much we take for granted. Like, you don't even think about the air that you breathe. We don't even think like, oh, how lucky am I to have this? It's not until something is dying in front of you every single day, you realize like how close to death we all are, that you realize how lucky you are just to have it. just to be able to breathe, to have consciousness, to be here. There was one day that we actually ended up going on a farther trip out, and we ended up driving through one of the small villages, and dirt huts, clay houses, tin roofs. Kids are walking to school on dirt roads. As cars drive by, it kicks up dirt in their ways. People are burning trash and tires on the side of the road because they have no other ways of disposing of it. It's a lot. Like, I didn't think I would be crying as we drove through that area, and I was just thinking about the level of human suffering that these people are going through. And while they're going through it, they still have a smile on their face.
That's beautiful. I think, it's always so interesting. It's like we make so many excuses for why we're unhappy here in America, and they have every excuse. And it just kind of refreshes me to think that, like, yeah, happiness is a choice. What you focus on is a choice.
I think I've had that realization a long time ago, but I think that for my wife, this was probably one of the biggest paradigm shifting moments she's ever had, was being able to go there and really see it firsthand, to understand what other people go through, and not just to like see it on a video, see it on Instagram, see it on all these things. Because I think what a lot of people do is they'll go through and they'll scroll on their feeds and they'll see things that are sad, and they think just by seeing it, maybe by giving it a thumbs up or a like or a dislike, that I've done my service, I've done something. But actually going there and seeing it firsthand right in front of you, and that's when you really get to like realize like how interconnected we all are. And like the one thing that keeps all of us connected is this source of suffering, is that we all have the same thing, that we're all suffering. We're all suffering in different ways. Here in America, we suffer because we don't have the nice car that my neighbor just got, or the better roof, or the Tesla, or whatever. And there they suffer in a very different way, that they don't have basic resources. But in addition to that, they're not suffering because they're not comparing themselves to other people. Everyone else is in the same boat. And I think that was one of the biggest differences I saw between Nairobi and between going out into the bush in the Maasai Mara, is that when you're in Nairobi, you're around nice houses every so often. You're around huge buildings. You're around advertisements everywhere saying you need this, you need that, you need this. When you go out into the bush, there is none of that. People are just surviving, and everything that someone has can basically be shown. Everyone is pretty much equal.
Wow. It's a lot to take in. It's a lot to process. So you think that? What do you think? God, I mean, I'm almost at a loss for words, honestly. How do you think that changes you as a person going forward?
When I got back, I really thought that it was going to stay with me longer. The lessons that I learned, the level of importance to realize what actually matters. And it was amazing to me how quickly it was that we got back into the States. Something goes wrong. Oh, I have to get on this bus now at LAX to go to my car rather than having a tram or whatever. And like now the bus is delayed and all this stuff. And you're complaining about these little things that are minute details. It's going to cost you another 5 minutes and $5, whatever. And we take that as like, oh my God, my life is ending. So the saddest part for me was how quickly I rehabituated. So I think it's a constant practice to remember that, yeah, this might not be perfect, but it's a lot better. And I'm not trying to sit here and tell you have to compare your suffering to somebody else's suffering, but to zoom out and get that wider perspective as to what one of my goals is, to get that wider perspective as to what life really means, what life is really about, the kind of things that other people have to go through. It allows you to see that maybe the problem that you think is the biggest problem in the world isn't that big of a problem at all, or is maybe just a minor inconvenience.
That's so true. That's very true.
So
no, please.
As it relates to money, because we are the Fi Guys here. Here in America, you have every single excuse to not save money. You have every excuse to say that the world is against you, that you can't do it, that you can't be financially independent, that you can't save for your future, that you can't do anything. There are people who are living on less than $1 a day in other countries, and happiness is a choice. It has nothing to do with your bank account, nothing to do with your net worth, nothing to do with the things that you own, the car you drive, anything like that. And it was made so clear to me by being able to go and travel. That's the reason that my wife and I travel to these places. Yes, we get to have fun memories. Yes, we get to do all these things, but also it gives us a wider perspective on the world. It gets us to see life through another person's consciousness. as we were driving through the cities, it reminded me how lucky we all are to have been born here in America, or how lucky you are to even have the device to listen to this podcast. Because there are many people out there who cannot listen to these podcasts, who don't have access to these types of things. We all believe that we're the center of the universe, that there was no other way that we could be than the person that we are. But you didn't have to inhabit the consciousness that you inhabit. You don't have to inhabit the body that you inhabit. You could have very easily been that person. Genetic roll of the dice. You could have been that person born into an area with 76% unemployment, where you would sell off your daughters during a drought, where you have to burn tires in the street, where you have a tin roof in a clay hut that you built yourself, where you're tracking out to a river to get water every day. That could have easily been you. So how lucky you are to be born in this time where, yes, things are bad. I'm not going to say that things aren't amazing. And they are better than they've ever been in all of human history, and better than they are in all of the world right here, right now.
Wow. So true. So true. I think it's so important that we walk with a little bit more humility today and every day after. Really keep those people who choose to be happy, even though they're in bad situations, keep them in the front of your mind. It's interesting. I didn't go to Africa with Chris. I wasn't in his luggage. They found me at the security checkpoint. I couldn't get through.
I got a lot of trouble for that.
A lot of trouble. Yeah. Guess where I was? I was at the mall for freaking 2 weeks. I was getting peddled. Anyway, I didn't go to Kenya. I stayed back in Arizona we're not really, you understand, right? So it's like, I didn't see what you saw firsthand, but I got to feel what you felt secondhand. And I'm moved. I have problems I'm dealing with. I got things I'm stressing out about. I got crap I have to fix. Doesn't even compare. Like today, I'm going to go, after the podcast, after I do some editing, I'm going to go to Home Depot and look at the prices of rototillers so that I can tear up my lawn and plant new grass. The most first world problem. And I hope all of you guys listening are also looking at your problems and your challenges and your difficulties. What if you were them? What if you were in their situation? What if you couldn't find a job? What if you did have a tin roof and a clay house? Would you still carry that same mindset? I sure hope not. I really hope not. Right? Americans couldn't survive out there. Not with our mindset. Maybe like a few people, but like, that's, man, I need to read some books on mindset training from friggin' the Kenyans over there, because that's brilliant work. It just shows that you can choose to be happy, and that's a blessing.
Yeah. A lot of it is the culture you're born into and the things that you see, and they're, in many ways, I think they're a lot better than us in terms of human beings. Like, I'm not going to speak for other people, but I can say that they were better than me. They're better people than I am. And for that, I'm grateful for them being able to teach me. Yeah. Just teach me how to be a better person, not through sitting me down in a classroom, not through anything, but just through living their life. And that's how you know that someone's a true teacher, is that they're not just trying to tell you what to do, is that they are living it, and you just happen to pick it up by being in their presence.
Yeah.
So with that, I hope you enjoy this podcast. I know it's a little bit different than we normally do, but I just wanted to give you some of my perspectives that I gained in Africa. Understand that whatever you're suffering with, whatever problems you have, it is a real problem. I'm not trying to tell you to compare your suffering to other people, to say like, oh, you don't have it that bad compared to this person. But when we can take a wider perspective and realize that we're all suffering just in different ways, we can begin to see the common humanity that we all have. I know that Dominic's a person because I know that he suffers. He knows that I'm a person because he knows that I've suffered. We've all gone through things that are hard. Yesterday, I was asked the question, what is it that automatically earns you somebody's respect? Or what is it that somebody can do to earn your respect automatically? And I answered the question with, just by being alive and being a human, you automatically have, by default, have my respect. It's up to you to lose it. And the reason for that is we all suffer. Just because you're alive today, Even if you haven't had the same sufferings that I have, you haven't had the same sufferings as people in Kenya have had, you have suffered in your own way. And the worst thing you have ever been through is the worst thing you have ever been through. So continue to go on, continue to move forward. You can do anything you set your mind to. And most importantly, I want you to take away from this is that happiness is a choice. And you don't have to wait till you get to some certain destination, some certain net worth, some certain money in your bank account. You can choose to be happy right now. And I know it's hard because I struggle with it every day. And it's something that I want to be better at. Not just for myself, but for everyone.
Well, with that being said, guys, that's our episode for today. Hope to see you back here on Friday for our Five Friday feedback, recap, and mailbag, and all that fun stuff, win of the weeks. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. I hope you learned something from it, and I hope you felt it as deeply as I have. And if you have, smash the like. but for real though, if you did feel something during this podcast, and I hope you did, feel free to share it with someone. I think everybody can benefit from a little bit of humility and a lot of not downsizing your problems, but understanding how big your problems are. I think today was a really transformative podcast, and I hope it's one that sticks with you for a while. And if you see Sam and Kenyan, tell him I said hi. Anyway, but with that being said, guys, we'll see you guys on Friday. Hope you guys have an amazing, amazing week. And please keep what Chris and I were talking about front of mind so that you can kind of change the way you live. We're the Five Guys. See you on Friday.
Later.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor. It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.